Hello, hello. The title says DPS. If you don't know, that stands for damage per second. And here's a video that says Rank 1 Enhancement Shaman Sunwell Plateau TBC Classic 2393.9 boss DPS overall dash complete raid 628. So I kind of started this perhaps misunderstanding what is meant by overall DPS. There's a website called World of Logs where you can post, or there used to be, I don't know what exists now, but where you could post your DPS rankings, where you, in the game, you type a script slash run combat log, and it allows you to save your damage reports and post them online. So typically these parses, as they're called, Parse, are per boss. But somewhere when WoW Classic came out and people were doing legacy servers and private servers, well, I guess when WoW Classic came out, they had a, people don't really do DPS, I guess, for the private servers. But when WoW Classic came back out, people were doing DPS for the entire raid, and what they were doing was chain pulling trash. So they would do a boss and almost like before the boss is done, start pulling trash to just have that combat log just constantly going, and it resulted in boost of numbers because you can have higher DPS on like trash mobs or something where there's a lot of enemies clumped up, and you just what's called AoE. It's an area of effect damage, and it does more damage. Bosses tend to be single target, and unless it's in the last boss of the dungeon. I used to think of like raid designs and to add to the complexity of a fight. It used to be like, how can we make this fight harder? I'll just throw in ads. So like the boss might have a single target DPS target, and then you have just ads being thrown at you. And so anyway, when I saw this video, this is Calicos. This video is 20 minutes and 11 seconds. I'm assuming this includes all the boss fights then. Hello, Carmela. So this 2393.9 probably represents an average of all the bosses together, which I probably wouldn't do because there are some bosses like the vampire boss, Queen something, in Icecrown Citadel, where you get a buff that increases your damage and might inflate it for that fight. There are some other fights that have that. Um, Vale in Blackwing Lair has an energy buff where you have unlimited energy, and I have all these videos in my YouTube feed because they came out with the Burning Crusade Classic again. So in 2025 they released WoW Classic Anniversary servers, and I had some interest. If it was Burning Crusade Hardcore, it's a tremendous time sink. The servers just opened up recently, and for the Burning Crusade, and I have some middling interest in doing this in my downtime. Um, when I was going to graduate school, when I was in a clinical psychology PhD program, and when I was in a graduate counseling program, I didn't have enough time to play this stuff. I did during my summer breaks. Maybe I might engage in a game for a month, but when the semester started, I did not play any games, and that should be documented by achievements. even betas for like Overwatch 2. I refrained from playing because it was during the school year. So I'm very interested in what Warriors. So way back when they announced the Burning Crusade, this announcement came maybe I guess around 2006, and they announced new talents. And for Warriors, they had something called Titan Script, which allowed Warriors to dual wield two-handed weapons. And I thought, I and many others thought it was an April Fool's joke, because Warriors were just these overpowered wrecking machines in PvP, and so to give them, two-handers seemed like a joke, but it was something that was put in the game. So when it came down to Warglaives, which were the most powerful weapon in the game, there have been legendaries in the game before. Thunder Fury drops in Molten Core, where you have to get 2 bindings from bosses Baron Geddon and Gar. Those are 2 different bosses. Gar comes first, actually. But I guess you can do Geddon first. Doesn't really matter. They drop the bindings, and then you have to farm different materials, such as Elementium ore, I think, which drops in Blackwing Lair, and you craft something called Thunder Fury, and it's kind of it says 41 DPS on it, which is low for all weapons, but then it has a legendary proc of like 300 nature DPS. And I've always been confused if that proc is or isn't included in the DPS, because I'm sure for something like Perdition's Blade, which is a non-legendary, that's 58.3 DPS, I believe, and part of its damage is a fire proc of like, where it'll hit you for like 30 or something. So I think the DPS for Perdition's Blade is potentially included. So I don't know why. Thunder Fury used to be a main hand, then they switched it to an offhand. So then there's also Atish, or Tesh, should say. Legendary staff. If you've seen the Warcraft movie, there's Medivh, that's the staff he uses, and you can craft it from completing Naxxramas, where you get splinters of Atish, and you get the base, and the top of it from bosses. I believe the base is from Cthulhu in AQ40, and the top of it is from Kel'Thuzad, and it transports you to Karazhan. And I used to hypothesize that Karazhan itself is the staff, where the Shadow Necropolis, where Kel'Thuzad resides, is what floats over Karazhan. The old gods are beneath Karazhan, and the staff itself is the Tower of Karazhan. And but that's not really relevant to this history of legendary weapons. In the following expansion, Burning Crusade, there were 2 legendaries. The first one was the Warglaives of Azzinoth, and then the second was Thor Delas or something. It's a legendary bow from the Sunwell, which is what's on the screen right now. The last boss, Kil'jaeden, drops it, and it was unique at the time because hunters carried ammo for their bows and guns, and this was a bow that had unlimited arrows, so they didn't need to carry any ammunition. And but there was some controversy where it was given to some rogues, where it used to be like, hunters would say everything is hunter loot. It was a stat stick for rogues, so there was a rogue that was given like one of the first ones, and but I don't know how strong it was in comparison to the Warglaives, which I guess are probably the best legendary in the game, at least to the point when I stopped playing, which is around the next expansion, Wrath of Lich King. I played after, but um, the I didn't play Cataclysm, which had I didn't raid in Cataclysm. Um, I didn't play at launch. I didn't, really experience that expansion. Um, that had a couple legendaries of staff from the Firelands, and also had daggers from the Soul Well or whatever, which is the main dungeon raid of the game for Cataclysm. And after that, I actually don't know. The legendaries kind of changed where rather than dropping, there were things that you would craft. So in Mist of Pandaria, you crafted a cloak, and it took the entire expansion where you might have got the quest at the start of the expansion, and by the time Siege of Orgrimmar came out, you were completing crafting it. And I think in more recent expansions, they've gone back to having things drop. I think Sylvanas dropped a legendary bow, but I don't know how these things compare to the Warglaives. So that's what this is about, because it was considered rogue loot. So rogues can use it, warriors can use it, but rogues were the best DPS in the game during the Burning Crusade, and it wasn't even close. And warriors had Titan's Grip, so why would they go from Titan's Grip to two one-handers? It didn't make any sense, because Titan's Grip was the final talent in the Fury tree. And they don't raid as arms, they raid as Fury, I guess. And but now, I guess people have seen just how powerful warriors are, and given how they work as a class, if you have a hit cap warrior, which I believe in Burning Crusade, the hit rating is 277, they can't miss with their white attacks, so they'll constantly be hitting with these Warglaives and just generating so much fury, and they'll have so much haste due to the legendary proc and how most of the gear works, that their DPS appears to be in the 3000s, which really wasn't seen at the time of SK Gaming killing Kil'jaeden. So, back in the day, Dragon Spine Trophy was the best trinket in the Burning Crusade. However, they nerfed haste, and Warp Spring Coil, a armor penetration trinket, became better, and I'm wondering how many people are using that as they start gearing out warriors with all this, with the Warglaives. Now there's a debate: should you give it to rogues or warriors? Looking at these DPS meters, it looks like, why would you even bring rogues? Like, rogues were these classes that were kind of utility, where they can dump threat by vanishing. They were the highest single target DPS in the game, and they also had infinite, energy. So other classes such as priest and boomkins and warlocks and mages, and I guess hunters used mana. I don't know at what point hunters start using energy. But they might run out of mana before a fight is over. And if I were to play Burning Crusade, I'd play warrior. I want those more glaives. And it's just aesthetics. It's T6 warrior gear, and the Warglaives is probably the best set. I see one more glaive. That's a hunter doing 3.6K. That's a shaman doing 3.4. That's a warrior doing 3.5. And down here is a rogue that's like 12. So, I mean, the rogue is just getting destroyed here. This appears to be a warrior with the warglaive. The rogue, I think, is here. No, maybe not. Looks like it's jumping too fast. Different abilities have different attack animations. So, let's see what they do on Brutalis, which is, I believe, a DPS test, where basically you just sit there and you just use your abilities. This guy has Mimosa or something, and Blade of Savagery. Better not be arena weapons, huh? I believe the Blade of Savagery is the offhand. So that's probably the rogue. It looks like it has, you know, the shoulders of a rogue, which are more like blood orbs sitting on the shoulder. I'm trying to see, I was going to look at the debuffs to see if there was hemorrhage. That's what I was going to say about the different abilities. There's two types of sword rogues. There's the hemorrhage, and then there's combat swords. One uses Sinister Strike, one uses hemorrhage. Where's the deeps? The rogue's doing 3.1. Without warglaives, I don't know how that DPS is being done. I guess I didn't have much of the Sunwell gear. Maybe the Sunwell gear is just that much better.
I didn't mean to like watch this whole thing. I'm just kind of like